Okay, welcome back. We're on page 336 talking about the slicer, and I like the slicer. It's pretty doggone cool. If you're using a little bit more modern versions of Excel, you could have used this to a more spectacular way than using this goofy advanced filter thing that we had over here. So slicers are cool. Again, they're kind of useful for the current person that's running the Excel. It's difficult for you to do this like in a report. You know, you can't print this. So it's nice live interactive kinds of things, but you know, you actually have to have the Excel spreadsheet open to be able to do it. So yes, this does work with grouping. I'm going to turn this, by the way, to make this thing go away, you know, just click on it and hit the delete key. You know, that poofy's gone. Okay, I'm going to go back to the date guy, and I'm going to ungroup him. Remember how we clicked on this guy, and I went here, and there's ungroup. All right, now I'm going to do the exact same thing over again with the slicer. So I'm going to insert the slicer, and I'm going to pick date, and of course now it's, you know, because the grouping wasn't turned on, you know, now you got this just the list of days. You know, so it's not all that useful here because rarely you're going to have lots of data in there. Anyway, so the bottom line is the slicer does honor grouping. Thank goodness. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is subtotals. On page 337, there's a way you can go in here and show, for example, as I have these things filtered, or show me what the subtotal is per row. Now I'm going to turn off all the filtering. Maybe get rid of the slicer completely. Let's go back to this guy and let's add, instead of date, let's add, I don't know, carts. Okay, for whatever reason. So now I have carts and average of food order. All right, cool. And I want to add, actually that's not a good example. How about having the carts be part of the row label? So I'm going to grab carts. Whoops, sorry. Grab this guy and just move him back over here to the row label. All right, so what I want to know is the subtotal for Arizona being 133.56. So you might think, well, how in the world did I do that? Well, it's under options. So if you go there and it's under design, and then it says, how do you want your subtotals? Well, do not show subtotals just means that's the default, by the way, not showing subtotals. Okay, there's your data. You're on your own. One of the ones that some people like to show at the bottom like this, I don't like that because it adds an extra row. You know, here's Arizona, and then there's the subtotal for Arizona. Well, I prefer the one that I just showed you, where it shows you at the top. So Arizona, and it shows the subtotal all in the same row. That's just personal preference on how to make subtotals work. So, you know, do you want a grand total? Like maybe only for the columns, you know, so scroll down here to the bottom, and here's the grand total guy. Okay. So just go through and play with this. Do I want the column heading? Do I want banded rows inside my pivot table? Sure, why not? And how about make them this goofy shades of blue thing over here? So again, you have the same old things with the styles and whether or not you want headers and banded rows and banded columns and all the rest of those goofy things. Plus how you want the layout to work and all the rest. So lots of cool options in there on how to do subtotals. I prefer subtotals to be at the top, but that's just a personal preference. Now, to tell you the truth, for subtotals to make really any sense, you need a nested y-axis, don't you? Right? Because if I did not have a nested y-axis, if I just get rid of carts, by the way, if I just want to make one go away, just doink. Okay. So what's the subtotal for Arizona? Well, the subtotal is that. I mean, right? There is no subtotal, right? So the only reason why you need a subtotal is because you have multiple things that you're trying to do. Multiple y-axes. The next thing is maybe I want to show this on a chart because I don't like showing people. By the way, I'm going to go here and grab this guy and format him as money since I like money. So we're just plain old regular formatting, right? Nothing fancy here. I'm going to go down here to currency. Doink. Okay, cool. So I want to insert a chart. So you could just do this the way we normally do charts, where you lasso the data, right? And then go here and say insert. I just want a line chart or a column chart. Okay, and that works. Okay, that's the average cost by state. All right, cool. But there's an easier way, because these guys have a little bit of sense. Instead of lassoing all that stuff, there's a thing called a pivot chart. And so the pivot chart is kind of sort of the same thing, except again, just like we talked about the difference between a named range and a data table, this guy's got a little bit more smarts. It, for example, knows if I refresh the data or change a criteria, it'll automatically switch. If it was just me lassoing the stuff and I changed the data or threw a filter in or did something with my slicer, the pivot chart would kind of go, huh? What? What are you talking about? I didn't see anything. But if you're doing it this way, it is the same. Okay, look. Doesn't that look identical? It does to me. So this is identical to what we had before. I'm going to temporarily, well, let me just close that down. Okay. So this is a chart of the pivot. So a chart of a pivot table is called a pivot chart. Okay. Nothing really new here. By the way, you guys are probably going to have to get kind of familiar with like how to change this. Things like down here, I don't have all of my states. Some of them are blank. Where is Arizona? I got Arizona, but not. Or I have Arkansas, but not Arizona. So I'm missing some data down here. So how do you tell it no, I want everything? Well, there's a thing in here. Specify the interval. So now I have them all. That's a good piece of information to know. Clicking in there and telling it I want to specify the interval. Likewise, if I wanted to change this axis, I want to change the minimum. Instead of being 0, I want to make it like 50. So click in here, go to here. And so instead of having just have the fixed, I go in here and say 50. And close. And so, yes, you need to know how to be able to change these automatic axes. Okie dokie. So that is everything you need to know about a pivot chart, but we're afraid to ask. Okay, there's not that much difference between a chart you created through the pivot chart tool and just a regular old chart. I will confess that they have these little cool tools here that allow you to go in and do filtering. If we had left the slicer up, we would have been able to slice and be able to see the chart move at the same time. Okay, so thank goodness. I know. Look, I know that pivot charts are kind of a tough concept, and watching me do it probably isn't the best way. The only real way for you to learn this is to pull up the practice material, crack open the book, and actually do it yourself. Now, they'll give you some step-by-step instructions. Do this, do this, do this, and after you've done it a couple of times, the light bulb's probably going to come on, ding, and you go, okay, I got it. I know what a pivot table is for. I know what it'll do for me. I know when I should use it. Again, I'm not much into the mechanics of step 1, step 2. I'm going to be more like, when should I use a pivot table? What's it good for? Okay. All right, that's the end of this chapter. We'll see you guys again in some future chapter.